Today a woman insisted that my prosthetic eye was actually really bad allergies. What's the most ridiculous offensive thing someone has said to you? I work in a New York hotel but I'm a native South African. A guest once asked to see my manager because I was faking an accent to pee her off. When he confirmed that I'm not local, she rebutted that she had a South African friend who sounded nothing like me. She was quite upset. I moved from South Africa to Colorado when I was 12 and people called me a liar saying I was faking a British accent and I was very bad at it. After that I gave up and put on a fake American accent. What the frick? Some people are so ignorant. I've mentioned this before but I had this really dumb coworker. Not only was she dumb but would constantly browbeat everyone around her with her ignorance. One of her more choice contentions was that the Jews ripped off Yamaha's name for their little hat thingies. I have no idea how she rationalizes that. My ex-mother-in-law used to always give me these backhanded compliments. For example, "Oh, you got bangs. They really soften your face." Or "Were you once really fat? You just have the type of body that looks like it was once fat." My Spanish teacher, she taught Spanish and German, and the rest of the class kept trying to talk to me in German and pronounce my name with a horrendous German accent because I have blonde hair and blue eyes. After a few minutes, I caught on and said, "Actually, I'm a second generation Hungarian American, and I have no idea what you guys are saying." They refused to believe that it was a country and insisted that if it was, it must be the same thing as Germany due to my appearance. I was born in Ohio and lived in the middle of a very Italian neighborhood. I was the only person with very pale skin and light features. That's freaking terrible. A guy in a classroom of 13-year-old kids explained that it's his honest opinion that I should do my part in making the world a better place by killing myself because I'm gay. So I ask who else thinks that gay people should kill themselves and 95% of the classroom raises their hand. Biggest WTF moment I've experienced so far. I'm albino and have vision problems because of it. I have to look at things very closely to read them. In high school, my French class had a substitute teacher. We were all quietly working on some homework, and, of course, I was reading my book very close to my face. The substitute comes up to me and proceeds to tell me I should really get glasses, not something that will fix my eyes. I try to explain to him that this isn't something that helps. Usually people leave it alone after I tell them this, but he kept going. The entire class was listening, and it was kind of mortifying, as my vision is something that has always made me feel slightly awkward, embarrassed. I finally said to him, "If you don't stop harassing me, I'm walking out right now, and trust me, I will not be the one getting in trouble for it." He shut up, but kept glancing my way the rest of class. Many moons ago in Walmart, I asked an employee where they had the World of Warcraft game cards. A nearby middle-aged customer asked me in the most condescending voice, "How old are you?" My reply was, "Old enough to mind my own business. How about you?" Excellent. I stopped being your friend because I didn't think celiac disease was a real thing. I've run into a lot of people who think it's just some kind of bull's fad because suddenly so many people have it. I think it's more a matter of so many people have finally been diagnosed thanks to increased awareness. English class, senior year of high school. There was one dense bee that first refused to believe that Venezuela, where I'm from, is an actual country. She was convinced it was a city in Mexico. End of the year, we have to hand in our papers. Now, this is high school, like 85% of Reddit. I didn't give a crap. I bullshitted a 10-page paper, and apparently I've got some talent at writing essays, so I could usually bluff my way to a B, or even an A. She sat next to me and was complaining that she did so much research and how unfair it was that she got a C. I get mine back, and she asks me how I did. I handed her the paper, and she saw that I got an 85. She looked at it for a second, got up, walked over to the teacher, and accused me of plagiarism because he's Mexican. There's no way he could have written a better paper than me without cheating. It's alright, bro. Someone once asked me what part of Mexico is Puerto Rico in. There was a map right behind me. My hair color is a light brown, but when my beard facial hair grows in, It grows in red. I used to be a busboy at a fancy restaurant near the Cleveland airport and I was working Sunday brunch. Well, it started to get towards the end of brunch, and this guy was sitting at a table near some that I was currently clearing. He's on his Bluetooth headset, mid-conversation, and without skipping a beat says to his friend, "Hold on, one moment," then looks at me and says, "Excuse me, but are you Amish? You know, because your facial hair is red." I wasn't as so offended as I was thrown off guard. I looked at him with a half-fake smile and said, "No sir, I'm not Amish. My facial hair just grows in red." A fancy restaurant near the Cleveland airport. This I have trouble reconciling. My mother was friends with two sisters who were both wonderful people. One had an amazing singing voice and was very well known for this, while the other had a prosthetic leg from a childhood accident. One day the sister with the prosthetic leg was approached from someone who asked, "So are you the one with the leg or the one that can sing?" Our jaws dropped. I have a yeast allergy, so I can't have beer. I learned this when I was in high school and I went to an allergist to get tested for food and environmental allergies. The doctor had drawn a circle on my arm, pricked me with the test for yeast, and in the time it took her to turn around to pick up the next allergen and turn back, the test site had swollen as large as the circle she had drawn and was getting bigger. The first thing she said was, "Whoa, no beer for you, so clearly it's a severe allergy." Anyways, every time I go out with new people to the bar I have to explain why I can't go in on a pitcher or bucket, and that doesn't really bother me. They don't know and it is a good conversation starter to fall back on with new people. But what bugs me is the 1 person out of 10 that then persists in trying to get me to drink beer anyway, all night. They use arguments like, "If you've never drank beer, how do you know how you'll react?" And "OMG, your life will never be complete unless you drink beer with me right now." Or "Are you sure? My cousin's brother-in-law's friend is allergic to gluten but he can still have this beer. If I tell you I can't have beer because I have a serious allergy, do you really want me to ruin the night for everybody by requiring emergency medical care?" I have something called cold urticaria, a skin allergy that causes me to develop hives when my skin is cold, and I have had it since I was 2 years old. It's not nearly as severe as it was when I was a kid. Almost killed me twice because I live in Wisconsin. But since it hadn't mostly resolved itself until my late teens, I was disqualified to donate blood plasma. So I'm a bit disappointed. Make a status on Facebook about it, my aunt comments on it, and we talk to each other for a bit. Well, when I worked at McDonald's, I had a manager who was a bit of a know-it-all frick face who liked to act knowledgeable about things he knew absolutely crap about. Sometimes, he'd spout off some crap lecture for the heck of it without even knowing what the frick he was talking about. I think he just liked to hear the sound of his own voice. Anyway, he saw my status and conversation on Facebook, and while we and a few other co-workers were all talking about something unrelated, he brings it up. "So I saw on Facebook that you couldn't donate plasma." "Yeah, I'm allergic to the cold, and it drops your body temperature, so I was disqualified from donating." "That's stupid. You can't be allergic to something like that." He then proceeded to try to argue with me about it, telling me that my parents were hypochondriacs, telling me my doctors were stupid, saying that an allergy like that doesn't exist, saying that if anything, it would have been eczema. I mean, frick, if that particular allergy didn't exist, I would have been able to donate my goddamn fricking plasma. And then there's fact that he had the nerve to try and call me out on that in front of all our co-workers to try and make me look like a stupid liar. That peed me off so bad. I wanted to stick his stupid face in the goddamn deep fryer. GRR. Just thinking about it right now is pee me off. Then later, after failing to make me look like a moron in front of everyone because multiple people were backing me up, knowing what an dillhole he is, he tried to make it so I wasn't pee at him anymore and convince me to agree to disagree. That night, I deleted him off my Facebook, so he wouldn't try to pull crap like that again. This story makes me so mad. I want to drive over there, see if he's working, and punch him in the face. I mean, this wasn't the only thing he did that pee me off. He was generally really obnoxious and annoying, and the only manager I had at that workplace that really pee me off. Goddammit, what a moron. My brother calls me an alligator during fights because of my eczema. I hope you bite him really hard, then drag him into a nearby pond. That'll show him. In a class in college we were talking about organ transplants and the professor asked if anybody had any personal stories about it and I said I had a liver transplant and told a bit of my story. A girl, after, raised her hand and said I think we should stop everything like that cause the world is overpopulated as it is. I just stared, completely in shock that she'd say that right after I said I would have died years ago if it wasn't for a transplant. I think it would have been appropriate to stand up, point at her and say frick you too madam. Bet the prof wouldn't have even been that annoyed. When I was a kid, I crashed into a set of trees while sledding. The trees were slim so my leg got twisted around them. It took a few minutes for my sister and nephews to get it out. All the while I'm screaming and crying. I hobble inside the house, freaking out because the pain was so bad I thought it was broken. I go to my parents for help and they took one look at me and say, "Stop whining. It doesn't hurt," and went off to do what they were previously doing. I collapsed from the pain and had to crawl up the stairs to get to my room, all while my stepmom's standing over me calling me a faker and liar and telling me to stop being so dramatic. I ended up passing out in the upstairs living room from the pain and dizziness. My leg wasn't broken but I think it did get somewhat fricked up, since I walk with a limp now. While giving my information to a store so I could rent video games. Store employer, name, me, Diana, yes, my real name. Proceed to spell name. Store employee, are you sure? Doesn't it have two N's? Me, nope, just the one. Store employee, are you sure? Me, hands so my driver's license pretty done. Store employee, oh. I have a good one. My grandmother who has Alzheimer's disease lives with us, and she recently had a urinary tract infection. While in the hospital she had a permanent catheter installed, and when she finally came home, a nurse, a very bitchy nurse I might add, came and showed my parents how to empty her bag. The nurse claimed that my grandma didn't have Alzheimer's, but was confused, as that is apparently a symptom of urinary tract infection. Even after my parents showed the nurse documentation she still persisted. It was enough to mildly pee off my dad and upset my mom. While that was insensitive of the nurse to argue the point, confusion is a symptom of UTIs. It frequently goes undiagnosed in the elderly because people just chalk up the confusion to dementia or Alzheimer's. Her persistence shows that she was just trying to be a know-it-all bee, instead of genuinely helpful. I hid the fact that I have depression and was on medication for it from my mom for months, because I knew she wouldn't handle it well. When I did tell her about it, she said that I was faking it and using it as an excuse for my poor grades, which happened because of how severe my depression was. She told me that I was using my medication as a crutch. This from the woman who's trying to use her medicated bipolar to get onto disability. I'm no therapist, but I think I found a major source of your depression. My name is Eli. Everyone insists on calling me Elijah even when I say my name is just Eli. Cause Elijah is an awesome name. Honestly, I have a variation of the same thing. My name's Chris, short for Christopher, but I look really Scandinavian, so in high school people called me Christoph. One of my co-workers will comment on how Asian my hairstyle outfit is on any given day, complete with appreciative leers when I look more Asian than usual. Your outfit is a 10/10, would rather again. When I was 3 I got a huge butt cut from an accident in my house. I can't remember, and when I was taken to the hospital my parents actually had the piece of skin that was torn off, only God knows why, and there was enough of the skin to sew it back on with stitches. So now I have a huge scar. One day a douchy friend of mine asks me about my scar and I tell him the above story. Then he proceeded to go on a 10-minute rant about how medical technology has not advanced far enough to do a procedure like that. I lose all hope in humanity at this point for people living under rocks like this. I broke my foot in 2 places in October. I was sitting down on the floor in gym before class because I was exhausted. Some girl walked up to me and kicked me as hard as she could on my boot. I was bawling and all she could say was I wanted to see if it was really broken. She ended up breaking my foot and setting my recovery back 2 months. Although it doesn't happen often, as a Japanese American I get occasional crap about the atrocities Japan committed during World War II. It doesn't make much sense, considering my great-grandparents came to the US around 1900 to 1920. Also, my grandfathers both fought in the US Army during the war too. 442nd Segregated Regiment. Not really offensive but ridiculous. Her. Where did you adopt your kids from? Me. I didn't. Her. Then where did you get them? Me. I made them. With my wife. Her. But. Explanation. My wife is Chinese while I am one of the many flavors of vanilla, so my kids look Asianish. Next time someone asks where your kids come from, make a point of telling them where kids come from, like they were a 5-year-old. I don't think your foot is broken. You're just making it up to get attention. Popular girl in 8th grade. Frick you, Rachel. It was broken. That or when I talk to someone on the late bus in 7th grade. I find it fun to communicate with the losers. Popular girl. Frick you, Melissa. That set back the recovery of my social awkwardness by a few years. Congrats on getting knocked up at 19. I sprained my wrist in elementary school and this one girl thought I was faking. So she grabbed my wrist and shook it. What a bee. A co-worker of mine, who'd started working probably a couple of weeks prior to this, asked me, out of the blue and all of a sudden, "So, are you like trans or something?" What offended me wasn't that she thought I looked MTF, or the possibility of someone seeing me as trans. It was that she saw a tall, flat-chested, homely girl and reasoned that the girl must have been born a boy. Also, who asks a stranger something so personal in the first place? AWW, comma. When I was in 9th grade, my brother, uncle, and next door neighbor all had walking pneumonia. They were all in very close contact with me for about a week. One day, I started coughing a lot. Eventually I would cough for at least a solid minute. Eventually my family says I should call the doctor, so we did. Instead I get a nurse. I explain my coughing and how my friends all had walking pneumonia recently. She asks one question, "Do you have a fever?" and I didn't. So I said no. She told me I was fine and there was no need for me to go in. I tried to convince her something wasn't right about a teenage kid coughing all day for minutes on end, but she wouldn't listen. Fast forward 4 months, the coughing hasn't stopped. I've gone through a low cross season and everything, and my parents still wouldn't take me to the doctor. Eventually we're at a water park, and I feel my lungs vibrate while I breathe. I show my parents, and they finally take me to the hospital. After we get back in town, turns out I had bronchitis for about 3 months, and that my lungs vibrated because they were finally healing. Nothing could be done at that point. I just had to wait it out. I still have lung damage because of this, and no matter how sick I get, I will always have a cough. I have had kidney stones in the past, and I was in my university's urgent care facility last fall because the pain was too unbearable. The doctor that saw me noticed a large scar on my right wrist, broke the scaphoid bone. If you look at my submission history there are posts about it, and basically accused me of just wanting to get narcotics because it looked like I was a suicidal lowlife. What a crappy doctor. I hope you were able to get real help. I was buying Finding Nemo at Walmart, because frick yeah, Finding Nemo, and the butthole woman at the counter makes some snide comment like, "I hope that's not for you." I calmly paid, took my purchase, and told her it's a good movie. Then I went home and watched it. I mean, what the frick? So what if I'm a big dude who likes Pixar movies? I was buying a squeak dog toy along with all my other groceries and the cashier wanted me to assure her I wasn't going to use it as a sex toy. I don't even want to speculate on why she thought that was a good thing to bring up or ask. Cashiers can be weird. And see. It wasn't said to me, but to my younger sister. Her grade 7 teacher told her that because she was an atheist, she wasn't allowed to celebrate Christmas or even call it by that name. She figured that anyone could celebrate whatever the heck they want, and he just kept insisting they couldn't. When I was 19, I was at this little city cafe downtown, and when the waitress come to the table to take our orders, I told her that I wanted a turkey and ham sandwich on toasted bread with lettuce. That's it. She kneeled down next to me like you would a young child is ordering and said, "Are you sure you don't mean a turkey and cheese sandwich?" I just looked at her and said, "Yee, that's why I ordered it." She looked confused, wrote it down, and walked off. I am not sure if her tone offended me or that she made me feel like a little kid, but either way I didn't like it. That reminded me of the scene in Grosse Pointe Blank where the waitress refuses to let John Cusack call cooked egg whites an omelette if it doesn't have cheese. Look, I don't want to get into a semantic argument. I just want the protein. I went with some friends to a snake breeder's house. This breeder's wife had muscular dystrophy and the breeder and I were discussing his own asthma, life and sickness in general. So, I told him that I have 40 allergies that I know of, been doubly skin tested, and while they might not kill me, having that many accumulated allergy reactions daily is no picnic. About 3 missed days of allergy meds can put me in the hospital. The breeder looked at me with a stone face and said, I don't believe in allergies. Thinking about how I feel on a daily basis, I was flabbergasted by this statement. I just said wow, okay, and walked away. Yes, technically I have major environmental sensitivities and not allergies, but anything requiring 3 allergy shots a week is not my imagination. Jesus, I've never heard of allergies so severe they require 3 shots a week. I thought those things were monthly, or quarterly, or even biannually. Once upon a time a friend of mine went to Mount Kilimanjaro and took a photo on the trip of a group of vultures at a carcass. They came home, framed this photo and gave it to me as a gift, because I have an interest in birds of prey and carrion eating birds. I put this up in my house and it became a joke that if I were ever to have a job with a desk of my own in a workplace where other people put up family photos, I would display this photo. It was just a joke, and I didn't imagine ever being so serious as to have a desk of my own anywhere. But this came to pass, and I not only had a desk of my own but worked in an office that put up with more of my oddness than most places and where I didn't see clients at my own desk. I asked around to make sure no one would be horribly offended, and got to put that picture on my desk. Mostly people didn't notice it at all. Occasionally people would double take. Until a good friend of mine stopped by my desk and peered at the picture and said, "Oh, a photo of your family. Can I see?" I could only wordlessly pass it to her. She claims she should have been wearing glasses, but I think she just believed I'd have family you couldn't tell from vultures round a carcass. She felt embarrassed. I thought it was very funny. So did my family. Also, regarding the OP, for some reason people are determined to bond over illness and diagnose you with whatever they have. My mother has problems with her throat caused by a whole string of fairly unique issues, and wherever she goes it's "Oh, I have that cold too. You have allergies just like me." My brother had throat cancer. Over and over. For the less serious conditions she mostly just agrees. I have no idea what is going on, but it's definitely a thing. I told a woman I am legally blind and she responded with, "But you get around so well. How can you be legally blind?" Well, for one, I have eye problems. I'm not cut in half at the waist, and 2, I was born that way. To be honest, I see her logic. When you say I'm legally blind, some people are going to assume you are 100% blind, can't see anything at all and should need a guide dog and or stick. If I was you, I would have explained what I meant by legally blind. It's mildly ignorant, but not that offensive emo. I have an accent. One day me and my friends were talking about people's voices randomly and how everyone's voice is different. One of them turned to me and says, "You don't have a voice, you have an accent." My mind was blown. Whoa. So what they basically said was you cannot produce sounds to communicate, but you have a linguistic characteristic common of your place of habitat. Whoa. A friend who's recently developed into something of a douchebag insisted that I was only pretending to be bisexual to make my best friend feel better about her situation, referring to the fact that said best friend is a lesbian. Never had I seen homophobia, biphobia and an accusation of dishonesty so densely packed into one sentence. You should unfriend this friend as soon as possible. Douchebag friends are no good. My father was really aggressive, used to hit me and my mom. I moved out pretty young. My ex-boyfriend's mom kept telling me, "Well, yes, he did, but he must have meant well, right?" I hate people like that so much. Your father and your ex-BF's mom. One of my former flatmate's friends told me I was a P because I didn't want to pour vodka on my cereal. This was upon the first time I met him at 10 AM and he proceeded to have a bowl of cereal and vodka. And freaking struggled, may I say. My former flatmate knows how little I care for that particular friend. It's not the most infuriating thing that's ever happened to me, but it happened a few days ago, so it's pretty fresh. 3 representatives from our cable company showed up to try and persuade me to upgrade and whatnot. One guy was talking to me and the other 2 were just standing there. He was being friendly and was asking me about college, etc. When I told him what my major was, the other 2 looked at each other and started laughing. I was livid. I would have asked for all 3 of their names, and the name and address of their superior, sat down and fired off a letter. 2 things. 1. One of my best friends in high school, whose mother is British and father is Chinese, and she is the most adorable person ever, once had a substitute teacher get right up in her face and slowly say, "Do you speak English?" Most infuriating thing I witnessed, and my friend started crying. 2. I am a 24-year-old young lady working at a print and copy store, and the fastest way a man can pee me off is by complimenting me by saying "good girl" after I have gotten their documents to do what they want. It feels slimy and like you are treating me like a dog or sexualizing me when I just did something for you you didn't know how to do. The correct dang response is "thank you, not good girl." Purple bananas, like for good luck. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video.